What's up, y'all, man? Today we're going to be checking out Daily Bombings, Horror of the Blitz. Righty. Now, I ain't gonna lie to y'all, man. I think this is pertaining to World War II because you guys have kind of commented and recommended this one from my World War II videos. And I've been mentally preparing for this one, man, because Daily Bombing sounds absolutely nuts, bro. Oh, boy. Oh, man. See, these images are already looking crazy, man. Look at this. Fire everywhere.
On the 7th of September 1940, a year into World War II, Germany launched an unprecedented bombing raid on London. Until this point, German bombers had focused mainly on military targets. Now they turned their attention to civilian ones, in an attack that killed 450 and injured 3 times that number. Moreover, this attack marked a drastic change in German tactics. From this day forward, London would be bombed almost every single night for the next 57 nights, in a sustained campaign of destruction that became known as the Blitz. In 1940, France surrendered to German invaders. This left Germany, under the command of dictator Adolf Hitler, to focus its attention on Britain. Hitler had a strong desire to carry out a full-scale invasion of Britain, but there was one obstacle that stood in his way: Britain's Air Force. The Royal Air Force, or RAF, was formidable. Though it had far fewer aircraft than the German Luftwaffe, its pilots were highly motivated to defend their country, and were bolstered by volunteers from around the world. Britain's use of the new technology of radar was also much more advanced than Germany's, giving them a significant edge when it came to responding to incoming attacks. On top of this, German attackers had many different objectives: destroying facilities on the ground, engaging in the air, and targeting and blockading ships in the waters around Britain. British fighters, on the other hand, were focused almost entirely on engaging the German threat. This singular purpose, combined with technology like the highly maneuverable Spitfire, allowed Britain's relatively small force to withstand one German attack after another. Germany's superior numbers, however, eventually started to wear down the RAF. Were it not for a chain of events that took place in August 1940, it's likely that Germany would eventually have prevailed. It was late in August when some German bombers accidentally dropped their payloads on civilian areas near London. Up until this point, Germany had aimed mainly for military targets, and so it was a shocking development that they should appear to target civilians. In response, on the 25th of August 1940, Britain bombed Berlin, enraging Hitler to the point that he commanded a change in strategy. German planes would now focus on decimating British cities.
Wow, wait, so this all started off as an accident? Like, Germany did it first as an accident. I would like to see how many things start out like that, bro. Because a lot of times in war, that probably happens a lot, and it escalates things, whether it's an accident or not. Because people still lost their lives, man. That's nuts, man. Wow.
London, in particular. The British government had long feared that Germany would launch a campaign against the civilian population. Some preparations had already been made. In 1939, thousands of children had been evacuated from urban areas to the countryside. Shelters had also been distributed to city dwellers. Anderson shelters were buried in back gardens, while Morrison shelters could be installed inside the home. Blackouts had also been enforced in many urban areas to make it difficult for enemy planes to locate their targets.
Wow.
Beyond these preparations, though, life had continued with some semblance of normality. People went to work as normal, gathered in pubs and cinemas, and went about their daily business in cities that were, for the most part, intact.
Do you love both?
This all changed on the 7th of September 1940, a day that would later become known as Black Saturday. On this day, a massive German raid killed over 450 people and wounded more than 1,500 in London alone.
Wow, man.
Shocking and devastating as it was, Black Saturday was just a taste of what was to come. After this date, bombing raids continued almost every night. Population centres such as Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, Cardiff, Glasgow and Southampton were targeted, but London was subjected to by far the most intense bombing campaign of all. These raids were devastating. Whole streets were obliterated. Churches, schools, cinemas, hospitals and pubs were flattened or consumed by flames. Air raid sirens rang out every night, sometimes multiple times each night. Most citizens were, on a daily basis, exposed to death, destruction, and scenes of absolute horror. They lived their lives ready at a moment's notice to flee to shelters, where they would spend hours huddling cold and afraid as explosions rang out through the city above. When the all clear finally sounded, they would emerge to fight fires, clear rubble, bury the dead, and treat the injured, knowing that, in all likelihood, the same thing would happen again the next night.
Damn, man.
And the next. Many famous London landmarks were damaged but not destroyed. Buckingham Palace, the Imperial War Museum, the Tower of London, the London Zoo, St Paul's Cathedral, and the Houses of Parliament were all hit. But
You know, and I will say that's another thing that I think about, man. Like when things like this are going on, bro, a lot of the I'm talking about sometimes ancient stuff from ages ago is destroyed. And that's one of the saddest parts to me. Like, you know, because I'm really big on history, and it's part of why I want to travel so much. And like things like this happening, bro, it stops people from being able to see these beautiful places. It obviously, you know, now people got to hide in shelters and things like that. And so it's just, none of it ends up being, it's never any good out of it. You
Buckingham
know?
Palace, the Imperial War Museum, the Tower of London, the London Zoo, St Paul's Cathedral, and the Houses of Parliament were all hit, but survived. In no
good they
small part
survived.
thanks to the heroic work of firefighters in the city.
Wow.
While many famous buildings were saved, thousands of ordinary homes and workplaces were not. The Docklands area of London, home to many working-class families, was particularly badly hit. The nearby docks were a desirable target, and so attracted many bombs. This combined with a shortage of space in shelters and very few resources for rebuilding bomb-damaged areas to make the Docklands one of the places most severely affected. Despite the unending horror of the Blitz, though, life carried on. People went to work and some pubs, theatres and cinemas remained open. People were often pictured carrying on with their day-to-day work despite the devastation around them.
Yeah, that's
There are many
dedication, man.
examples of people using humour as a way of dealing with the horrific conditions of the Blitz, and pictures from the time appear to document a sense of cheerful endurance. The attitude that prevailed, at least according to official accounts, was typified by the now famous morale-boosting campaigns run by the British government, with slogans like, "Your courage, your cheerfulness, your resolution will bring us victory," and "Keep calm and carry on."
Wait. Keep calm and carry on. I think I've seen this like when I was younger, like in memes and stuff like this. I never knew this came from that. Wow. Yeah, that gives a whole new meaning to that saying now. That's nuts.
And carry on. This Blitz spirit is something that is often fondly remembered and has become a point of national pride, but at the same time it represents only some of the story. Subjected to nightly near-death experiences, many people suffered a range of mental health problems: night terrors, bedwetting, nervous collapse and psychosis. Some gave up on seeking shelter when the air raid sirens sounded. In the blackout-darkened streets, crime was at an all-time high, and there were few resources to combat it. Fear and nervous tension were pervasive. Personal records from the time reflect the fact that almost everyone was terrified and suffering, but had no choice but to carry on with their lives. The fact that they did carry on was viewed by the government as evidence of high morale among civilians, and this was used extensively for propaganda purposes. In fact, the stress and suffering of the British people was made worse due to the government not providing adequate shelters. Anderson shelters were damp and cold and would provide protection only from shrapnel, and not from an actual bomb blast. Morrison shelters would protect those inside from collapsing buildings, but not from the fires or thick choking clouds of dust that often followed.
Yeah, that looks
Some
so
dedicated
uncomfortable.
shelters were built using incorrect materials, resulting in them simply crumbling when hit, providing little or no protection. There was great demand for deep, underground shelters, similar to those that the government had constructed for its own personnel. But the government was reluctant to provide these, fearing that if they were available to ordinary people, those ordinary people might retreat underground and never leave, thus hampering the war effort. As a result, Londoners were initially forbidden from using the tube network for shelter. Desperate, many Londoners did so anyway by buying tickets and refusing to leave the station during air
Wow,
raids.
yeah, that's smart, man.
It was only after an escalating series of protests that the government relented and allowed ordinary people to shelter in tube stations deep below ground. These proved popular and were soon fitted with toilets, beds, medical facilities, and more. These shelters, of course, were not without their hazards. Some years later, in 1943, 173 people died in a crush at Bethnal Green Underground Station, the worst single loss of civilian life during World War II to take place in the UK.
Man.
As shelters were developed and people adapted to the hellish uncertainty of life under Blitz conditions, the bombing raids continued up and down the country. London was hammered night after night, while attacks on other cities were more sporadic but were devastating when they came. On the 14th of November 1940, the city of Coventry was devastated by a particularly prolonged raid, which flattened 4,300 homes. The destruction was so comprehensive that some German leaders would thereafter use the word Coventriet or Coventried as a byword for total destruction. In May of 1941, after an unimaginable period of near-daily raids, the Blitz came to an end, called off by Hitler himself. He now wished to send his forces east to fight the Soviet Union, and could not spare the air power needed to continue the relentless attack.
Damn, so he would have kept doing it.
However, the Blitz that he had overseen had already changed the course of the war, though not in the way he had hoped. Hitler's shift in focus from hitting military targets to hitting population centers had allowed the Royal Air Force a chance to recover, rebuild, and reinforce. Had the Luftwaffe continued to strike military targets, Britain's forces would have been decimated. As it was, they now stood a fighting chance against the German war machine. The people of London, Liverpool, Manchester, and other British cities who survived the Blitz survived a living nightmare, sometimes with very little protection or support. Their suffering, at least, was not for nothing.
Wow, man. Jeez, bro. Yo, it's crazy to think. Actually, I'm gonna say crazy, but it ain't surprising to think that he would have kept doing it. Like, had he not wanted to relocate his resources and reallocate, I should say, his resources elsewhere, he would have kept doing it. And that's sad, man. This is really, really sad. Now, this is my first time checking out this channel, Fascinating Horror. I'm sure that there's probably plenty of great videos that could talk about things that have happened. It seems like they talk about British things, but I could be wrong about that as well. But man, this was excellently done. So if you guys enjoyed this one, I sure as hell learned a lot. I wouldn't say enjoyed. I enjoyed the way it was explained, but I didn't enjoy hearing what I heard in it, man. But geez, man, this is crazy. This is pretty dang nuts. And it's hard to imagine, you know, considering I was born in 2002. Okay, it's hard to imagine that things like this really happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, the world I've seen has not even been close to anything like this. So it's tough, man. Wow. I'm out of here, man. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, love y'all, man. Leave a like. Peace.